Okay, so welcome everyone to the fourth event of our Business Architecture Meets Sustainability webinar series. How can organizations leverage business architecture to enhance and accelerate their sustainability efforts? That's basically what the whole series is about and what we've been exploring from various angles throughout the previous episodes. The first session in this series kind of provided a general introduction into how business architecture and sustainability may come together in an effective way. We concluded that business architecture can help make sustainability measurable, actionable, and visible based on the holistic view of the organization and its ecosystem, which it provides, helping to translate strategy into execution in a cohesive way. In the second session, we focused on how sustainability reporting efforts can benefit from the use of business architecture. And the third session turned our focus to business architecture and the circular economy. And since there were a few things left to discuss, we were kind of running out of time at the very end of the last session. We are following up on the previous session today. So it's basically, again, well, about this question: how can organizations leverage business architecture to help achieve circularity and contribute to the transition to a circular economy? So who's on this session today? It's again Wendy, a business architecture and strategy execution thought leader, community builder, and I guess much more. So I'm going to keep it short for today. Catherine, an internationally renowned circular economy expert. Well, and usually we have two Daniels, but unfortunately today it's only one. It's only me, because the other Daniel had to cancel on short notice. Well, so it's me, Daniel, founder and managing director of Across in the Head, hosting today's event. Okay, so we're all set. Let's get started and dive a little deeper into business architecture and circular economy now. And I would like to start by reflecting a little on some of our thoughts from the previous episode. So Wendy and Catherine, I hope you can still remember what you explained last time. Because what I'm going to do now is, well, basically to drop a few thoughts or ideas from the last session and let you comment, elaborate, discuss, well, to have a common basis for detailing things and shedding light on some additional questions later on in this session. Yeah. Okay, so first one would have originally been for Daniel, but since he's not here today, I'm going to ask Catherine. Moving from cradle to grave to cradle to cradle, that's something that Daniel referred to last time at the very beginning when introducing the circular economy as one solution to help achieve, well, certain sustainability goals. What does it mean, cradle to cradle rather than from cradle to grave?
I would say thank you very much for inviting me to some kind of interpret this understanding. As we are like locked in a linear economy, and this is a literally very metaphoric picture of the big differences between a linear economy and a circular economy. And a linear economy, which is basically 200-300 years old, it's designed to produce as much as possible, to consume as much as possible, and within these wheels, this is how we create value. But it's also the key product of a linear economy is actually waste. So maybe we see that now the waste, the burden of waste is now getting so heavy. We feel it, we see it. It's the heat, the oceans. Our nature is not able to carry the burden of linear economy. So that's like the cradle to grave. So that's when everything is meant to die. Products are meant to die, materials are meant to die, But when we move into another kind of mindset where we talk about cradle to cradle, it will move from finite to an infinite mindset. That how can we keep resources in use at eternal times and make it create value multiple times? It's how we move to resource productivity. So how much value can a material or product provide during its lifetime? And when a football is no longer a football or a pen is no longer a pen, then we also have a plan for the next life cycle. That's hence how we understand the cradle to cradle, and new life is in the emerging.
Okay, and what's the butterfly model for circular economy then? I remember that's something that you referred to in the previous session. Is this somehow related to well, the cradle to cradle paradigm that you just explained once again?
It is. It's one of the most famous metaphors or pictures how an economy can work, actually, because and also remembering, and we see that there are very many metaphors that how do we explain this, some kind of organic economy. But in a butterfly model, we can imagine that everything comes in from like the head of the butterfly, and we see that we have all the resource extraction processes. We take out bio resources or metal or ore resources or fossil energy resources. We process them, they become a material, they become a product, and then they go to use. So when a product has been processed through this like idea of a butterfly body, it's in every industrial process we leave a lot of industrial waste. Either this will become even more burden for the global waste mountain, and it will end on landfill or incineration, or we might actually in a butterfly model see how can we bring back the resources. So the right hand side of the butterfly model, it is dedicated for the technical materials as like hard metals and cement and steel, and on the left hand side you have the bioeconomy, and they behave very differently, but understanding that nature is the model of it all. This is how we do innovation, and how do we actually keep bio resources in the butterfly loop, or technical resources in like cement loop. And also in a perfect economy system, you will have waste from one side can become resource on the other side. The most important purpose in a butterfly model is not to let some kind of the resources end as landfill or waste to energy or burning or incineration. That's when the material is lost about forever.
Okay. And then there were 3 circular economy principles that you shared last time. Can you maybe help us remember what they were about?
Yes, I can. It was very nice to meet you, because how we see the 3 principles, it's not how we deal with waste. When a product has become waste, it's impossible to eliminate waste, but we can eliminate waste and pollution when we start designing. And this is where thinking as designers and architects, these are where our families need to move into under the same roof together for a while now, because the key principles driven by design is that when we design a product, there will be no waste and no pollution. And we circulate products and materials in the business models that it can be sharing economy, digital recycle economy, but there are digital business models that keep the resources and materials at highest value, and also having an ideal that we don't want to put any toxic materials into a value chain, so we can regenerate nature and use nature as our wisdom bank or inspiration for all our designs of housing, of transport, of clothing, sheltering, and that's like the key design principles.
And what are the let's say essential differences between a linear mindset on the one hand and a circular mindset on the other hand? That's kind of another thing that you had on one of your slides last time.
It is. I was very happy when I read this in the Swedish governance report from the government about 5 or 6 years ago. So it's like understanding that we actually have to walk into another like closet room to change. So in a linear mindset, we are very much stuck into an understanding that we live and produce within value chains. And in a value chain, economic transactions happens between like every connectivity that we sell and resell. our resources are finite. So it's also an economic principle. So that scarcity will make something more expensive and you increase the demand. So the logics in a linear mindset is very locked in. We are very much into lean thinking. And I like lean thinking a lot, but it's also about the purpose is to reduce waste. It is not about like redesigning new things, but the economic system is to reduce waste and diversity and create more monocultures, because that creates efficiency economy. We are very concerned about ownership. So we own things privately or government-wise, but it's and it's very product-centered. So when going into a circular mindset, of course, it's challenging for generations that has like acquired wealth. But when we see that this is where we walk into the infinite mindset. So whatever I do, any material I use will probably live longer than I will during my generation. We think about value systems and value flows. So we're not only locked into one value chain, but we see multiple value chains connecting. And this is where we go into the systemic mindset. We start applying design thinking as well. And in design thinking, it's also a way to understand how can you create multiple solutions from one problem, or use problems as a cradle for creativity. And most important, we are not concerned but about usage. So how do we use and how do usage actually create value? And to get there, we keep on talking about the function. It's not about like, is it mine or yours or where's it, but what kind of functions are needed and what is the societal need? So this is maybe the key mindset shift that will challenge also how we apply economics.
Thanks, Catherine. Wendy, to introduce business architecture as, well, let's say kind of a framework to help deal with circularity, you made use of a quote from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, stating that the problem, well, and the solution starts with design. How is this related to the role that business architecture might play in a circular economy context?
Absolutely. Well, you know, that quote is honestly the why of business architecture. Why is it in this conversation, right? It helps us to do that at multiple different levels, right? So we can think about designing and redesigning products and services. We can think about designing and redesigning our organization, our operations, how the people, process, technology, facilities, assets work. And we can also, of course, reimagine and think bigger picture about our business model and how we work in business ecosystems, right? So business architecture, you know, it's this very unique, holistic view of an organization and the ecosystem in which it operates. So that is so powerful because we have real work to do here. And if we don't have to spend time figuring out what the world looks like today, that is a tremendous lift, right? Let's get on to designing and redesigning to be circular. And the business architecture is holistic. It is high level. It is very value focused. It's oriented around delivering value. And it is also hopefully, excuse me, agreed upon and created by the business people. So hopefully, you know, people across an organization, it becomes a common view of how everybody sees it. Beyond that, I think it becomes a way, a mechanism to institutionalize these very important design principles that we're talking about, these circular design principles, whether that's in how we're designing and redesigning organizations today, how we teach students of the future to design organizations, because I think that's where we have a lot of work to do. And Catherine, you make some good points too, just about the average mindset of all of us as individuals, thinking ownership, thinking product, right? We have all sorts of stuff to shift there. So that's really the key ideas around it's all about the design.
So Wendy, essentially what you suggested last time is that business architecture, and it's pretty much in line with what you mentioned again, that business architecture can be used to reduce, to redesign, and or to rethink. So what does that mean? Can you maybe elaborate on this a little? What would it look like if we kind of reduced, redesigned, or rethought things? And what were some of the business architecture views you mentioned that could be of help there?
So a little bit riffing off, Catherine, some of the things you shared there too, right? So if we think about a spectrum from reduce, redesign to rethink or reimagine, right? As we're getting more sustainable, as we're moving to more circular, reduce is just reducing waste, reducing of all different forms, right? And that's where we think about things like lean, right? Wonderful. And business architecture gives us a good high level lens to be able to do that. But that's not enough, right? We certainly can't stop there. That helps. Moving on to redesign, really thinking about more macro level, right? How do we rethink where we have assets, how we're using assets, the products and services that we offer, and reimagine being, how do we totally rethink our business model, even to the extent of becoming regenerative? And how do we shift from thinking about our organization to working in business ecosystems, which can take lots of different formats? I know last time we also talked about industrial symbiosis, right? One business, the waste of one business becomes an input or fuel for another. So really just rethinking what's possible. And of course, if you're on the rethinking side, you're going to definitely, reshape the way the organization looks, and you're going to, how we redesign and reduce is also going to take a different format as well. So I think as much as we can really think big is quite important. So I think those are the essences there. In terms of some of the models, right? For reduce, value streams are a real powerful tool, especially working together with process or lean value stream, macro, micro. In the redesign space, really, again, value streams, capabilities, other things as well, but those are really our building blocks. And then in the reimagine space, business models and value networks, right? Catherine, as you say, to rethinking value chains, to how do we put them together? How do we put value streams together? How do we extend value streams? How do we rethink business models? How do we work together in value networks where we're just totally partnering and hopefully not losing anything along the way?
Thanks, Wendy. We will detail some of the kind of business architecture facets in a couple of minutes. But let's return to the circular economy space first. So in terms of how the transition to a circular economy is related to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, Catherine, there's SDG number 12, I think, which is about responsible consumption and production. Is this the one goal, kind of the one and only goal that the transition to a circular economy would help us achieve?
I wish I could say yes, but I would turn it around. I think that the circular economy has a branch into all of the 17 SDGs. You cannot take it apart, and just putting into the number 12, it also is very, it reduces the impact of circular economy thinking. And that's where also the battle about words hit in, because, circular economy is not enough and so on. But circular economy is a mindset. If it's in the oceans or if it's land, it's very social, it's human inclusive. So it's about, if you think about, it's a structured way of regarding that we have in a circular business architecture, there are lots of waste objectives that we need to eliminate. It will be space waste, it's human waste. It's we need to take in use all the resources which are there, both on structural level, infrastructure level, and human. And then if you go into the SDGs, then back to them again, I am particularly fond of cities, because cities is a system as an ant's village, that it's really about understanding the connectivities. Also because cities have come pretty far in the era of smart cities, and it's also how you can apply a more mature data set and data digital thinking. So how do you make a smart city become wise? It's about how to create circular cities. Then you also have the SDG about innovation and infrastructure, because you cannot achieve a circular economy without investing and really putting innovation at front of everything you do, because there is no such thing as is in a circular economy. Everything has to be reinvented, as you said, Wendy. both in reducing and rethinking. We're not used to that. We're not, our incentive systems don't work that way. And you also mentioned we have to think big. And in order to solve only the minor tiny problem, we have to think big to understand what is the systemic impact before we narrow down. So I would say, of course, I would say you have this cake plate for circular economy, which has 17 branches, and you can interpret it in every one of the SDGs. And but my favorites will be number 17, number 9, number 11, and number 12.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And well, a final question for you, Catherine, before we kind of move on then into well, the next part of today's session. So apparently it's, well, not only a manufacturing thing, right? So am I right in saying that there are many industries affected by the transition to a circular economy? And if so, can you elaborate on this a little?
You want me to take I can take a glance on that. It seems like what is halting us for the transformation. And we have traditional value chains. I call them like asset heavy value chains. If you're in construction, you transport a lot of cement and steel. If you're in clothing, you're overusing textile. If you're in nutrition, it's food systems, either fish or agriculture. But anyhow, you have old asset heavy business models. That is like, how do you disrupt these value chain? Then you have, I would call it primary industries, and then you have secondary industries, which is like service orientation. And I really hope to wake up the service industries, because this is where the new circular business models are going, from selling products to providing services. So we really need service mindset and service management in order to do transition. And then we really have those who I guess all of us belong to, and it's like the knowledge industries. It's like the third what kind of approach, and that's like those of us who can work horizontally, either if you work in digital development, if in accounting, if in auditing. But you have a lot of functions in society. It would be transport. I would say the transport and logistics. It's not like one silo, but they are really the water and the river of all the societal functions. And I really have a I have a really like a star in my eyes when I look at all the horizontal industries, because they don't have anything to lose. Anyone who has something to lose leaving linear to circular, it will take more time. So I really believe that the responsibility of the more neutral sectors that work horizontally and can apply cross industry collaboration among industries, and not sit and keep on an old school culture, where as we see a lot today.
Mm-hmm. And Tanya, if I could just add on just for a minute, so well said. This, as we all know, affects every single industry, every single one of us. And I just think it's on every industry and organization to say, minimally, what's the impact of the products? And even if we're not in one of those heavy industries, what's the impact of the products and services that we're offering? And is there anything we can do to even sort of drive consumer behavior to allow them to make some more sustainable choices and really contribute to more sustainability overall?
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, maybe to finish off the first part of today's session, well, just because there are kind of so many terms around, I came across a great scientific publication recently, which offers a nice overview of how circular business models differ from, well, sustainable business models in general, and also from so-called regenerative business models. Let me share it with you. Just a second. So here we go. So don't get me wrong, I don't want to turn things into an academic conversation now. But looking at what's kind of at the core of a circular business model here, an increase in material productivity, being the main goal of circular business models. The closed loop systems being the dominant systems view, and the circular technosphere and regenerative biosphere being the design focus shared with sustainable and regenerative business models respectively. Does this resonate with your thinking and kind of summarize, well, some of the key aspects that we touched upon before? Any thoughts on this?
I would say whatever has a source where Nancy Bokken is quoted, I would really like go down and kneel and learn and listen. I haven't seen it this way, but I know like there is a vocabulary development now. When I did my green growth masters like almost 10 years ago, green growth is now some kind of losing out as a sustainability transition engine. We see variety of clusters, people who talk about sustainability and others are circularity, and I see there are some value conflicts, and I don't want to walk down that lane. What I really think is interesting now is the regenerative approach, because the regenerative approach, it demands us to give back more than we take out. So in the word of sustaining, it is the sustaining a status quo. So the criticism to sustain is like we don't even have a status quo, that the world cannot carry the burden of that. In green growth, it's to reduce the burden of the impact of the pollution that we do. But when we go into the regenerative room, that really demands us to really flourish our cities, re-greening our living places, to really be careful about how we exploit nature, really regenerative and nurture biodiversity, and really understand, and as we are living this every day now, understand the nature biosphere as the core system. So this is, I would say, a very welcoming way to look at it. And to be very, the final word is on the sustainable human sphere. I like very much they put human into the map, but also it's not only designed to meet human needs within planetary boundaries, but we really understand how to meet future human needs. This is not about, and this is how the conflicting decisions we're in today. There is one very painful cause, which is a battling area now, and it's how in order to go into electrification, we see huge lobbying to go to deep sea mining to extract lots of minerals from the ocean floor, as we know the ocean is suffering. So I really think that understanding the time perspective, that we have to be very, very respectful for future generations' needs, not only ours.
Mm-hmm. Wendy, anything you would like to add?
I love the view. I love the clarity it gives to each of these perspectives. They're nuanced, but not, they fit together. You know, I remember something that Daniel said last time, right? He acknowledges it takes lots and lots and lots of solutions, right? To help us achieve our SDGs and be sustainable. And I think this just reminds us of how the pieces fit together and all the things that we need to do and be thinking about it. And I agree with you, Catherine. You know, some people are just wrestling with sustainable and circular, but regenerative is really, I think where it's at as well to work towards.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's continue to focus on the circular business model and dig a little deeper there. So, if we wanted to get a circular business model, so here, that's where I want to go. If we want to get a circular business model realized, what would this require? I mean, based on what we discussed before, I guess we will agree on the need for an ecosystem perspective, right? So we really need to take a look beyond the organizational boundaries and think about the entire ecosystem in which we operate. Well, and that might be a challenge for some organizations nowadays. Well, actually, it's even worse because within organizations, we might operate in silos. While for an organization to transition to and then operate a circular business model, well, this is likely to be something far-reaching, which requires the involvement of many, since circularity is not only a matter of one function within the organization. So what I'm saying is that we would need something that helps us to bridge silos within our organizations. Any thoughts on this, or any additions in terms of what is essentially needed to realize a circular business model?
Well, maybe I'll just jump in here. Catherine, feel free to add. Daniel, very well said. And we're like, wink, wink, nod, nod, right? I mean, that view to bridge those silos, to give that ecosystem perspective, is those business architecture views that we've been talking about, right? Value networks, business model, value streams, capabilities, and all the focal points that touches. I think from my perspective, you have two really big things here. Ecosystem perspective is not just, hey, let us look at the blueprints and, you know, decide how we're going to redesign. It's also a desire, right? As we've been saying. And I think there's another important point, as I put on my business hat, that what makes sense for sustainability also makes sense for business in a lot of ways, right? To work with other partners in business ecosystem where we can actually deliver more value that's greater than the sum of all the parts, right? Where we can operate in a sustainable and circular way and attract those customers, right? What's good for the environment ends up being good for business. Lot more opportunity, I think, as we're working in value networks and in ecosystems versus just in our organizational boundaries. On bridging silos within an organization, extremely well said. I mean, just to give the most very basic of examples, I think about working within an organization. There's an environmental group that's trying to reduce paper, while the marketing group is surging the paper that's being sent out, and they're not even talking, right? So we know a business architecture and the golden thread. We can understand our goals, our objectives, right? We can tie them back to SDGs, even at the bigger level. And then we can understand, in order to achieve those holistically, what parts of the whole business need to change to help us achieve those goals, which is going to obviously cross functions when we look at the value streams and capabilities that are involved. And then we can take that into making action. Just one last point, in addition to thinking about silos and functions that we're bringing together, I think there's also design disciplines, right? We have an opportunity for design disciplines to work together. We touched on that briefly last time, because it's not just business architecture, it's human-centered design, and it's organization design, and it's the technology architecture, right? All those things need to partner and have these threads of circularity and sustainability. Catherine, your thoughts?
I think it's very valuable to listen you, as you mentioned, the silos, which is as is situation in almost all companies. And I was earlier today, I was like looking into the good old Porter value chain model, right? You have all the internal housekeeping departments. And as sometimes it seems like our brains are hardwired that we actually believe that the world is like Porter value chain. It's not, but still internally the silos are very, very present. So who owns the circularity? Is it HR, human resources? Is it strategy? Is it technology? Is it whose problem is it to solve, or whose benefit is it? And I truly don't believe this is where we deviate a little bit, because this is not starts on the sustainability officer. It really starts in some of the key collaborative efforts internally. And it's very rare that I see this is actually happening. So there, understanding the barriers of internal silos, and where I often more see it's more internal battling. It's like, keep that person out of the room, or this is and it's no wonder, because circularity, it taps into the supplier, into the distributor, into the sales. And I was like looking into one of my, you mentioned it so eloquently. It's about what kind of networks do you have internally? It's about it's not, the customer is not like a Dumbo sitting out there, because you have to engage your customer to be part of your take back system or sharing system. So he is also a supplier. So he's part of the supply system. So these roles externally of the organization body, they are also shifting. And this is maybe where we do see the roles of the customer engagement, but also the ecosystem network, where when we in the last session talked about reducing, redesigning, rethinking, I'm very much here. We need to understand complexity, acknowledging the complexity which it's in. Connectivity, so how do we actually do connecting the nodes outside and between businesses, and also the ability to collaborate. So these 3 C's is maybe something I would see to put into this drawing here, because nobody enters circularity alone. You're always depending on someone else, and you don't actually know who it is, because you couldn't put it in a Porter value chain model. You have to be more investigative. So who will be your supplier if you are actually trying to make more closed loop systems and local value creation on this?
Okay.
So it's really exciting, and but the silo is really what's holding us back within and outside of the organization.
Yeah, I think that's very well put, well, both of you. So if we kind of agree on, well, the ecosystem perspective, organizational silos which are to be bridged, and maybe other things to be added, being among the ones that we need to get a circular business model realized in an effective way. I guess this is essentially, and when you pointed this out quite well already, this is essentially what business architecture can offer, right? Well, that's actually at the core of how we may want to define business architecture, being sort of a framework that provides a holistic view of an organization and the ecosystem in which it operates, that helps translate strategy into execution in a cohesive way. So let's maybe try to visualize this a little better. So what we may want to do is to take a look at our business through a capability lens, right? Capabilities are typically meant to describe what we are able to do, it's not about how or by whom things are done. So a capability map is meant to be comprehensive in that sense. So no matter whether we, so when I'm saying we, it's kind of the organization, right? So no matter whether we do certain things ourselves or we let a partner perform certain activities, there should be a corresponding capability on our map, if that's something that our business model requires. Capabilities are also meant to be non-redundant, which means there should be one and only one, let's say, product design capability, even if we had different units within our organization that design products. And this also means that capabilities are business unit agnostic. Capabilities do not represent unit within our organization. So based on that, Wendy, are capabilities something that we could use when facing the challenge of getting, let's say, a circularity strategy translated into execution, having a frame of reference at hand that people across the organization can use to have conversations around what will be impacted, what will need to change, rather than doing this separately in different departments, which might lead to something incoherent in the very end.
Yes, everything you said, exactly. Brilliant. Yes, 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 yes. But for every reason, right? Because this is how we cross those silos. As you said, Daniel, there's one and only one product design and product packaging, regardless of who performs it. So it brings us together. And if we really think about capabilities and value streams, actually, I know we may talk about that. Those are the macro level building blocks of an entire organization. Those are our Lego pieces. Everything can be translated through the capability in a value stream context. Value streams are honestly reusable sort of chunks of value, right? That leverage capabilities. And so if we want to translate a strategy, or if we realize we look at the metrics around product packaging and maybe we want to reduce that, right? This is the focal point, and we can understand across business units, across products, what are the people, process, data, technology, and asset changes that need to be made. So it all gets framed right here. It's quite eloquent, and then we can create a harmonized set of initiatives to do that. And as I'm alluding to, you can tie, because capabilities, right, enterprise-wide business framework, you can tie sustainability right in here, right? So we might have, again, sustainability metrics in here, circularity metrics tied to the capabilities. We may have some considerations, right? We may product design, we may have always create a service, always do this, always do that. And that way, no matter who's touching it, no matter who's doing something with this capability, it doesn't matter who's in the room. As Catherine said, this is not just about the sustainability office. That doesn't work. This is all of us, right? And it embeds and institutionalizes sustainability into all of our thinking about capabilities and anything we do to them.
Mm-hmm. So capabilities are definitely, well, kind of a core business architecture domain. But as you kind of already suggested, there are more. So let's maybe take a look at one additional lens that business architecture offers. That, Wendy, you already mentioned it. So we might want to take things a step further. And well, take a look at how different capabilities, let's say, kind of play together in the context of value being delivered to external or internal stakeholders. And often this is done by, well, a business architecture concept called value stream, which is meant to offer end-to-end views as to, for example, products being designed, material being acquired, or products being manufactured, all of which might be of relevance when it comes to circularity, right? So end-to-end views of value being delivered to stakeholders. So we might want to cross-map capabilities to the value streams in which they are utilized. So Wendy, any additional thoughts on this? What do you think? Is that kind of something that we could use when aiming to get a circular business model realized?
Yeah, and beyond just framing the changes together, capability and value stream context, right? Because a capability can be used in many different value streams. Mm-hmm. You know, just even looking at these, we could look at the performance of the various value stream stages. We could drop down to processes or lean value streams, look at what's going on down there, roll it back up, reflect and heat map it on those stages. And we even are going to think circular, right? So here we are developing a product, we have an idea, we are acquiring the material for it, we are manufacturing that product, then what, right? So in value stream world, we should probably create another value stream for take back products. So that's a great example of, in order to design for circularity, we need to do a whole bunch of new stuff. And as we add that new value stream, we know there are probably some of the same capabilities we use. There are probably some new ones. There probably will be new partners, new systems, new all sorts of stuff that that can help us to identify.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah, I think this, I'm just adding a little bit. I like it very much. And also, as we talked about last time, we are very trained within business architecture now to, within the last, I would say, 10 to 20 years, using the customer journey as like a mindset and how to deliver value across a customer journey. And I think this is the same mindset that we need to apply to material journeys. So materials are always on eternal journeys. And this is also where we gather and capture value, even if a material is not in use or a natural resource is not in use, but how do you actually evaluate the material wherever it is on its like journey we see here on the end-to-end. And also very much was mentioned in the chat here, it's like about the context. And I would say that the stakeholder perspective would be even more important, because you cannot do one size fits all. So having control of your assets, that would be the assets or the stakeholder management, relation management, as a circular economy needs to apply value for multiple stakeholders, not only shareholder value. So this is also a value, long-term value shift. So the importance of stakeholders' perspective and optimize the value for multiple stakeholders, I would say, is some kind of part of this part of the, I would say, circular business architecture.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So maybe to point out the unique business architecture characteristics once again. Wendy, how does the use of business architecture differ from, let's say, looking at things from just a business process lens? So why is it business architecture that we may want to use to maybe frame and structure discussions on circularity? Do you want to add a few thoughts on this?
Yeah, just to add a tiny bit. So business architecture, it's multiple different viewpoints. We can connect to the process because it's multiple viewpoints, and because it's higher level, it's abstracted, right? On purpose, give us the forest for instead of just the trees. We can see some different things. Yeah, so I know we've talked about like a value stream, and you can drop down to the processes or the value, the lean value streams to see what's happening. If we think across those ideas of reduce and redesign and reimagine, it's hard to reimagine if processes are the only thing in your toolkit, right? They really fit better with reducing and then making real any changes we have in redesign and reimagine. So, it's just a broader, higher level toolkit that shows all facets and very importantly, shows the whole ecosystem as well, which process may or may not, depending on how folks are doing it.
Okay. One particular approach to design things in a circular way that, well, we heard about last session, but we had it again today, is to shift from product to service. Catherine, I remember you shared at least one example last time, which I think it was about renting a park suit or something. Do you remember the example?
Yes, it's a very good example if you want to sell as many park suits, or like, I don't know how it is in Germany, but in Norway you have like this vetmang, this thing you just put your kids into when it's winter time, so they keep dry and warm. So this is obviously a consumer product, and now there are suppliers offering this park suit as a service to kindergartens and schools. It means you have a subscription. So instead that you have of going out and buy a new this piece of consumer goods and you have to throw it away next year because it's outworn, those who provide park suits as a service, they need to ensure the quality is just as good. So the user experience for like family number 5 or 6 or 8 is just as high as the first family. So what is the difference when we actually do provide a high quality leasing product out in the market, and maybe you don't have return on investment before after the 4th or 5th family, but the business model is anyhow that you will have more jobs because the jobs in the service part of it, it's maintenance, it's shifting all the zippers, and it's the keeping value at highest times. And what would you actually avoid? We avoid textile waste. So when 10 or 12 families have been using like this, then it actually has service value. And those who provide this this clothing as a service, they will have a totally different business models than those who produce as many suits to sell as fast as possible, maybe possible 3 for 2 or whatever. And these business models, product as a service, is maybe one of the most, I would say, archetypical transition models as well, because it really challenges what we talked about, the internal structures of a company. This is where disruption is really hard. This is where innovation is really hard. So if you have been like for 3 generations been selling outdoor furniture and being best in that, you cannot just retrain your sales force to become service managers and build lasting customer relations. So it really is a transformative approach when you walk into, for example, product as service PaaS models of a circular economy.
And Wendy, are conversations around shifting from products to services also something that could be supported by the use of business architecture? I mean, we talked about capabilities, value streams today, but another business architecture domain that you also had on one of the slides last time are products, right? So what do products represent in business architecture, and how would we deal with services then?
Yeah, most certainly. So capability is the real key tie for product. And well, Catherine, you laid it out nicely. Let's say we were manufacturing and now we're going to, maybe we're even going to receive clothing and we're just going to take care of the subscriptions and the experience and things like that. Totally different business models, right? So there may be business model changes, right? So we would discuss there. But if we were offering this product and now it's a very different service, in this case, we would say, do we have the capabilities internally to do that? Wow, we may need to not do a whole bunch of capabilities we do today. What new ones do we need? What can we reuse? And let's put them together. I will even go so far as saying, if we think about capabilities as these reusable building blocks, and organizations did this during the pandemic. It's a good example. They said, all right, what's the stuff we're doing? How can we retool that really quickly to deliver it differently, right, in a product or service? So it's also that same thinking of using capabilities to be creative and even kind of bottom up, what new services, right, or potentially products can we offer? So yeah, there could be a lot of change there. And if we understand the capabilities that are going to enable that new service and that shift and what we need to stop doing, we can get to all the impacts around it, right? Again, people, process, technology, and policies and everything. And then we have a plan for change, right? That we can do in a coordinated way.
And if we mapped products, so made products kind of part of our business architecture, this would not only include goods, right? But also services, correct?
100%.
Yeah.
And product in the is the domain. It is product, is good in service. So thank you for calling that out. I should have said that.
Really want to add on because it's very clear how you spell it out, Wendy. So when we work with product as a service model, one thing is like we have, how do you serve your customer? Is it like a so here it goes again, we don't own it, we use it. But secondly, what you need to ensure in a business architecture is how to buy a performance as a service. Like how do you offer a predefined service or quality level, or how do you actually measure the performance of the product? And that's like where the value creation will, or the business development will also be optimized, I guess.
Attributes on products and things like that. Absolutely. The performance is a great call out. Yeah.
Okay, maybe a final one. We're again running out of time. So for those organizations which are about to make their business circular, I guess it's really a journey on which they embark, right? So, I mean, we might just not get everything designed for circularity straight away. Catherine, are there any particular experiences that you can share with respect to the kind of the actual transition? And Wendy, do you consider business architecture a helpful framework for planning a, let's say, transition path? Any thoughts on this?
I like some kind of spell out how can we measure circular maturity, because there is no such thing as one size fits all or a silver bullet. Those who can do a startup from day one and design every element in a business as circular optimized, but most of us don't have that opportunity. So I like very much understanding the most important thing is to get started, no matter what. If it is driven by cost control or your waste, or if it's like you need to have win the market or whatever, we see challenges arising in the market all over the place. So those who enter the circular maturity ladder, they will have advantage in the economy of the next century. So it's like somebody needs to do it, because reactive regulations are hitting in very soon. So you have to just get started. It hurts, it's painful. You see more on the maturity level 2, you are more active, you try to understand, is it my product or is it my, and then when you start getting on like level 3, then you include this in your R&D or in your strategy, and you start understanding ecosystems. And the fun starts when you see those who are really reconfiguring their own infrastructure. That's when we see they start flourishing and see how could we 3D print new shoe soles instead of buying. And they are really becoming like monitor KPIs and adapt and start not having competing competitions, but more worthy rivals, as Simon Sinek would say, in these new ecosystem communities. And when you really go on, like, how do you actually influence your surroundings, your stakeholders, I would say on circularity level 5, then you're really proactive in every level, and you want to be ahead of your customers and your suppliers. And I think that's like the most useful. But this is different cultures. I know the French industry, they really want to measure, oh, it's 20% and it's 32%. You have the Dutch, it's more like, oh, this is a journey. So there are variety of ways to ensure that or measure our introduction and latter. Myself, I really believe in digitalization and data gathering, because if you don't count, you cannot measure. So I'm really thinking, if you don't just get through the bottleneck, if you don't know how to count your resources, if you don't have track of your data, then you will be just like spinning and spinning and spinning. So I guess that's like my black box this year and this summer. How do we connect data information management with resource management?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I'll just share, maybe in a slightly different direction, inspired by you, Catherine. You know, there's also a business architecture journey that organizations go through, and there's what's the reason, how is this going to bring value? This is a little bit different way of thinking. So there's a maturity, and there's a doing it, and people understanding what it is and how it can provide value. So it feels like that walks along this circular journey as well. And it can provide the artifacts, right? The blueprints to be able to do some of the things that we're talking about and give credence to them. And of course, we've already talked, as our dear colleague Rob McKee says in the chat there, having the capabilities, value streams, current and future, right? That gives us a roadmap on where we're going to actually achieve all these things. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, it's nearly 4, so I'm afraid we're done for today, although I guess we could continue to discuss. Yeah, any final thoughts you would like to share, Wendy, Catherine? Any takeaway message that you would like to leave with all who tuned in today?
Well, Catherine, I'll let you have the last word, so I'll just share a couple thoughts. And Catherine, you actually highlighted this last time, and it's always a theme: collaboration, partnership within organizations, across organizations, the desire to do it for a better world for all of us. And there's just, you know, at a very specific level, we can bring a lot of value to each other. Business architecture and sustainability and circularity, we can help each other so much in so many different ways, and always about the mindset. So, you know, embedding these principles and this way of thinking in every organization and every school. Let's start there so that we don't even think about our world in a linear way, but only circular going forward.
It's really inspiring, and I think I will connect with you on the mindset approach, because this is really understanding we don't know what we don't know, but that doesn't make us, we cannot stand still. So accepting we don't know what we don't know, but we have to test and try. I really believe also in our next dialogue on this, I think we will need to approach skills management and skills needed, because if you want to, when you work with system innovation, if you don't apply new knowledge, you will copy what you have been doing. So what kind of new skills do we actually need now to learn something new in order to do something new, so we don't replicate a linear your past. This is a little bit like, I would say, explorative approach, but also McKinsey has been now publishing this summer how extremely important it is to include business model innovation, about business operationals, about social skills, about system skills, and they also emphasize the digital skills and technology skills. So this is like where we met about a year ago, Wendy, with the CTOs. There is no way anyone can escape these matters. And this summer, I'm actually working out a class called ABC for Circular Economists. And this session today, it inspired me to turn it around. And this is like a CBA, that will be the circular business architecture. I think that's like the most excellent start. So I guess that's my punchline for today. Looking forward to the next time.
Great. Thank you very much, Wendy, Catherine. It was another great session. I really enjoyed the discussion with you. Many thanks for this. Thanks to everyone for joining us today. And I hope to see you again next time. Our next session in this series is scheduled for beginning of December. And it will likely focus on business architecture and sustainable IT. See you then. Goodbye, everyone.